so in love with Elvis. For Kay Wheeler, it's been the love of a lifetime.
Everybody loves Elvis. That's what this is all about.
This is where they started, Sun Studio. Sorcery tour stop on the musical pilgrimage to Memphis.
That's right, friends. You're walking on hallowed ground.
It's where Elvis first started recording.
It wasn't until late that night when they're taking a little break and Elvis started jamming on a blues song that it was different. Mixture of country music and blues music, sped up and electrified.
I got a new song we're gonna play here.
With the very microphone Elvis used still in the room, the experience borders on the religious for some, and the call to worship always draws them down Elvis Presley Boulevard to Graceland.
The red shag carpet is the actual original red shag that was in the living room, so very cool and very funky at the
very
same time.
70s.
Yeah, definitely very 70s.
He broke down a lot of barriers. He changed a lot of mores in the world of how we dress, how we look, how we wear our hair, how we think about our fellow men. Those are the subtle things that people can't put their fingers on, but why Elvis Presley still lives.
And what went through your mind when you heard him? I first heard Elvis in the Big D Jamboree radio broadcast. I think it was in 1955. And I had already kind of been turned on to rock and roll with the great black rock and rhythm and blues people like Hank Ballard, who made Sexy Ways, and the Clovers, who made Little Mama. And there was already an underground rock and roll rhythm and blues movement going among teenagers before Elvis ever hit in any kind of large way. And apparently he had gotten in on that himself because he picked up a lot of that in his music. And so he tried to ply his craft in Nashville at the Grand Ole Opry, and they told him to go away. He would never be a singer because they were strictly hillbilly, and he was too raucous. He had too much, rock and rhythm and blues. So he was playing little tiny Texas towns. He hit the road in Texas, which is a real part of his story and his making it. And he played little places like Glaywater, Texas, and little honky tonks, and he was just like a little ragtag singer with a guitar when I knew him. And I heard him sing on the Big D Jamboree on a radio broadcast, but we were already into rock and roll, so we were looking for the black radio station one night, and we accidentally hit this, and the guy, we said, "What is that?" It was like an atomic bomb, and he was singing Mystery Train. And my sister Linda and I, and they said, "This is Elvis Presley." So, we were excited about that. But I didn't know who was Elvis Presley. It was like nobody. It was like on some country and western jamboree thing. One thing good about Texas, they opened the doors to Elvis and gave him a venue where he wasn't getting it in Tennessee. Even though Sun Records had recorded him, he wasn't getting venues in Tennessee. So he hit the road in Louisiana, Texas. And that was instrumental in the launch of Elvis and where I came in, because of course his fan club was going to be Texas, because that's where he first started playing in any real way other than the Louisiana Hayride, or in Shreveport, Louisiana. So that was the first time I heard him. I hadn't seen him visually. Then at school, like about another week later, this girl was talking, and she said, "Boy, there's this guy down in Glaywater, Texas, and he's the best looking thing. He's playing this little country and western bar. He was shaking his legs like you wouldn't believe it." Of course, my eyes were getting bigger and bigger. And she said, "His name is Elvis Presley." I said, "Wow." I tied it together to what we had heard on the Big D Jamboree, and I said, "Sings like that, it's cute too, shakes his leg, hello. Who cares?" So then, even like a couple of weeks later, we were in a music shop in downtown Dallas. This is in Dallas, Texas. And there was a poster, one of the original promotional posters of Elvis. And when I saw him, I said, "Oh my goodness." And we was flipped. And actually, I hate to admit this for the media, but the only thing I ever really took, I took the poster out of the record shop. This was the beginning of me and Elvis. I just had to have it. It was like something I had to have, And so I just discreetly pulled it off the poster thing and folded it up, put it in my books. So we had the picture now, we had the music, and we had the shake a leg, and we hadn't seen him yet, And so, that all put together, it was like, who is this man? And of course, we were already in love with rock and roll. We were in the rhythm and blues movement. So here's this white guy that looks like to die for good looking, okay, that does this whatever, shaking and all this. And we're these little 15-year-old girls, freaking out. I have two sisters, so we were just screaming over it. So, and that is when I first heard Elvis.
And then when did you finally meet up with him?
I finally met up. This was how the fan club was started. It just started the first. Graceland has just issued the Elvis Artifacts box, which has 14 items in it, reproductions, very quality, in celebration of this 25th anniversary of Elvis's death. And the first thing, they didn't know anything about it. The first thing listed in the box is my nation's first and largest Elvis Presley fan club, and it's reproduced in perfect. I had sent one to Colonel Parker and called him the Brain and given his address at Heartbreak Hotel. So cool. It was Presley pink. And, so I felt really honored about that. And I didn't have any idea that it was going to be done. But the fan club actually started with the help of a major radio station in Dallas called radio station KLIF. My aunt was an administrator and assistant to the owner of the station, who was Garden McClendon. It was my Aunt Billy. And she took me to work with her one time on the weekend on a Saturday. And I just had all these Elvis concurrent sightings, experiences, all of 15. And so the disc jockey walks in her office and he says, "You can't believe there's a guy out called Elvis Presley." Because he was making fun of him, like, who is this? This is the dumbest name anybody ever had in show business. That was his attitude. And of course, automatically that was just like lightning. I said, "Elvis Presley? Well, I know him." I thought, I don't know him, but I know of him. I know about him. And he said, "Well, he sent this record." And he said, this is the dumbest and the worst thing I have ever heard. I said, "Well, that's not true. He's wonderful. He's good looking. He's everything. And besides that," and then I told my first lie, "but I have a fan club for him." I didn't have a fan club, but I just wanted to really wipe him out. You know what I mean? I said, "Just finish you off. He's even got a fan club." But I really, and my two sisters and me, we're founding members, so we were a fan club of his, small though it was. And so he came back later and got my address from my Aunt Billy. And as a joke, he played that record. And he said, "If you want to join the Elvis Presley fan club, you can write Miss Kay Wheeler, 3929 Amherst Street, Dallas, Texas, and you can join." Ha ha. It was like a joke, okay? That was like on a weekend, all right? Monday, I was home from school for something. I was good at that. Anyway, I didn't go to school that day. And my mother came, and the mailman had come, and there was all these boxes of mail on our front porch. Well, I didn't hear the program. I didn't know it had happened. I didn't know he did this. This was just his way of getting even with me and humiliating me and thinking it was a joke. But what happened is all these little places he'd played, like in Gladewater and all over Texas, he had that radio station went out there, okay, because it was one of the broadest, it had a good audience. And so all these kids wrote in and wanted to join the fan club. I had about 500 letters, all addressed to me. I said, "What is this? What is this mail thing?" And it came in. My mom said, "They're all addressed to you." We put them down on the family room floor. It was hundreds of them. They said, "Dear Kay, we heard your fan club announced on KLIF on the Bruce Hayes show, and we want to join. Send us a card, send us a picture." And I'm going, "Card? Picture? What's that?" So that's how the fan club actually started. It was...
And you had never met the man?
Never met the man. But boy, he was making thunder and lightning across Texas.
So then when did you meet him?
Okay, so they all wanted a picture, and they all wanted a card. Well, there was no cards, so I made up my own card. Can I get one to show you real quick? And this is the one that Graceland, this is an actual card. This is one that Graceland just issued. It was a Presley pink, it says, "Man, this Presley pink card certifies that is a loyal member, the coolest class in the Elvis Presley fan club. Kay Wheeler, president. Elvis is our cause." Wow, what a cause. Oh, what a cool kid for 15. But anyway, I decided to print my own cards. Well, first I wrote, there was an address on that poster that I took for the music store. So we wrote, it was Bob Neal. It was his original manager before Parker. And so I wrote a letter. I said, I have some people that want fan club cards and photos of Elvis Presley, and I don't have anything. So in the meantime, it had been sold, Elvis had been sold to Colonel Parker, like a product, like a commodity. And so I got a letter back from Colonel Parker's office. It said, "Elvis is just one of Colonel Parker's artist. He manages Hank Snow and June Carter or something like that. And he's just one of our new, it was like a hillbilly singer. I mean, like some guy knocking on the door to want to come up, like, to sing. And it says, he doesn't have a fan club, and we don't have any fan club facilities or anything for that. So if you would like to do that, you have our, go ahead and do what you feel. Just take it and run with it. Well, that was like handing off a ball to a quarterback, So that was it. So I went ahead and they did send me one 8x10 picture. They sent me a picture, a promo picture. And so I just went ahead with the cards. I just designed the cards, printed the cards, had them printed in a little print shop, and started answering the mail, sending out the cards to the people, the kids. And so about 4 weeks or a month later, the lady that had written me the letter from Colonel Parker's office, wonderful woman named Carolyn Asmus, I have no idea where she is, but thank God for somebody that would give some attention to the fan club, just somebody. And she wrote me and she said that Colonel Parker asked if you would like to go to San Antonio to meet Elvis because he's getting ready to do a Texas tour. Oh. Imagine that, talk about the screaming that went on in when I got this letter, from Colonel Parker's office. And she had said, well, is San Antonio close to Dallas? And of course, it's not that close, but it's right around the corner. Okay, it's 189 miles maybe or more, I don't know. So anyway, they said, we'll give you a telegram. We'll send you a telegram and use that telegram to get backstage to meet Elvis. So I put on my best pointy toes high heels and my best little sheath dress and got everything together and got on a Greyhound bus and headed for San Antonio. And at age 16 and a half, it's about 16 and a half at that point, maybe not that, I don't know, it's hard to keep up with all of it. So anyway, I met him April 15th, 1956 in San Antonio, Texas. And that's where a lot of those pictures that are shot that you see that I still have. And that's where I met him the first time. And I took the telegram and it was like a magic genie opened the door, I show that telegram, Colonel Parker's name on it, and everybody just went away, all of the gates open and the blocks, It was like letter through, and I thought, wow, I feel like something great's getting ready to happen. So I walked backstage, and Tom Diskin, who was Elvis's road manager and the only real gentleman in the Parker Association, I always have to get my little digs in here, and my compliments. He said, well, Elvis is in that room just going in. I said, you mean just go on in? I'm going to be good for this. And he said, yeah, just go on in. So I just turned the door and walked in. He was sitting there all by himself in the dressing room, in front of a mirror, of course. And he saw me. I walked up and I just stood behind him, and he got up and he turned around and he walked over to me, and the nerve, and this is really happening, he runs his hand all the way down me like this. And he says, is that all you, baby? And I said, and my heart's beating 1,000 miles an hour. Yes. And, so that's where I first met him,
It must have felt like you had died and gone to heaven.
Oh, I did, yeah. I still feel like that. It's still good to relive it.
So
then you met him, you went out with him, you traveled a bit. What's he like?
Well, the early Elvis that I knew was before he got repackaged by Colonel Parker, who, was a carnival hawking guy that painted painted sparrows yellow to be canaries, and had a dancing chicken show where he put a hot plate and made chickens dance in the carnival. I mean, this guy was somebody from another planet. As far as I was a teenager, and anybody over 30, we didn't talk to, or anything. We were like the first youth culture. We thought everybody that was over 25 was finished. And so this fat Colonel Parker, he looked like the devil to me, like, who is this man? And that was before Parker had really started putting the chains on Elvis and turning him from the Memphis Flash into these bad movies, where he was like this, playing these funny characters and everything. And the only reason I'm grateful for the movies is at least it keeps the image alive and people can see, as bad as they are. Some of them were good, like Jailhouse Rock and King Creole. And Blue Hawaii, some of these were good, but some of them were not. Some of them were really, and Elvis admittedly was disappointed in that. But let's see, where were we on that? The early Elvis. Oh, he was a wild man. He was a wild man, saying everything the press to upset them, You know, he would say, he was holding me in his arms in San Antonio when the press came in, and they said, Elvis, are you ever going to get married? And he squeezed me. He said, why buy a cow when you can milk it through a fence, you know? And I just froze up inside of his arms. You know, I thought, oops, that doesn't sound right, you know? And I was just a kid. But he was wild, and he was out of control. And that's why Colonel Parker put the clamps on him so hard, because he wanted to make Elvis palatable to the squares, you know, the rest of the world. And so he, you know, that's why he took him and made him mine and put him on chalk lines and, you know, put him in those horrible films and repackaged him. Because what did Colonel Parker know about what the youth phenomena of Elvis Presley was? Was he an authority on that? I mean, he had just come out of the carnival barking business. So here we had this alien, this enemy to the whole rock and roll rebellion and the youth thing, taking our king. He kidnapped our king. And so the early Elvis was wild. He was everything that you would imagine to be a rebel. All of what James Dean in Rebel Act calls Marlon Brando and the Wild One. Stanley Kramer's great picture that affected my life too. And so he was free. He seemed happy, full of life and fun, and always cracking jokes and always just saying anything that came to his head. You know what I mean? He was word was out of control. Wild man.
Did you stay somewhat in touch with him over the years, or he started to lose touch with him?
Well, actually, after the jailhouse, the last time I was with Elvis was in 1958. I was there to make Hot Rod Gang with Gene Vincent, who made Bebop Balula, which was crazily enough, both Elvis and I were making movies in Hollywood at the same time. It's weird. Had nothing to do with the Elvis Presley thing. Made Rock Baby Rocket, and then Hot Rod Gang with Gene Vincent. And I went to the press premiere of Jailhouse Rock in 1958 at the Pantages Theater in Hollywood. And I walked in, there was like all these chairs lined up, and all the press was there and all these people. And I was sitting there. I walked in there and sat down. And when Elvis walked in, the first thing he does, he looks at the whole room and he says, "Is that you, Kay, back there?" You know, and everybody turns around and stares at me. I said, yes, I'm here. But the thing that I really noticed differently when he answered the questions and everything was the striking contrast between the early Elvis in San Antonio and the Texas tour and Fort Worth and the Cotton Bowl, where he filled 26,500 people due to our fan club right in. And that was in 56, before he was a big star, okay? That's a huge, 26,500 to a live venue in 1956 was astounding. And that was due to the radio station KLIF, and we did a write-in campaign. Because in San Antonio, when I met him, I said, he says, I'm going to Fort Worth, and he named out these other towns, and he said, I'd like you to be there. Oh, well, I'll be there. But I said, well, aren't you coming to Dallas? I said, that's where your fan club is. He says, well, Colonel Parker says we can't get booked there. So I said, well, I'll see about that when I get back there. So the first thing I did was call up my Aunt Billy. I said, how can we get the station, what can we do to get Elvis in Dallas? She said, do a write-in campaign. You know, just start having all your fan club members write in. And maybe something will happen. Well, KLIF, the very radio station that helps found the fan club, and this is a good start, Texas Tale, actually brought Elvis to Dallas on October 11th, 1956, and they kept selling so many tickets that they had to get the freaking Cotton Bowl, which is like the Rose Bowl. I don't know, it's a huge football stadium, Texas style yet. And so that's that story, you know. So that's how, you know, we got things going. And there was a huge contrast between Elvis at the Cotton Bowl, Elvis in San Antonio, and Elvis in Hollywood. And boy, did I see it. It was like they turning him into a square, because every word he answered was so structured. Every word was like, you know, you could tell. It was like, where is Elvis? And of course, I was the rebel rock girl, you know, always looking for fun in the next, you know, fun and thing in the rebel. And so he started like, well, what's wrong, Elvis? What are you doing? You know, it was like, and the colonel, and then the colonel tried to take my fan club and control it once it got big and everything, you know, it was 50,000 members. And it was like, all of a sudden, this mean old fat man, and Elvis was changing and everything. And I got kind of disillusioned there for just a minute, to tell you the truth. So I decided I met this wonderful guy in Hollywood, and I said, I'll just get married, that'll be fun, and see what that's like. Now that we've done all this other crazy thing, so actually I kind of got away from Elvis over the years, even though I like music. I stayed with rock and roll. I'm a big rock and roll fan of everybody. I didn't just freeze in the 50s, even though the 50s were great. I've got a wide music collection from the U2 to, the Eurythmics to, everything contemporary, Madonna. So.
Let's go back to 1977, August 16th.
Mm-hmm.
Where were you when you heard the news that Elvis had died?
I was in Houston. I was in Houston, Texas, and I was married and had a kind of a new marriage.
Were you shocked? What did you feel?
Well, you felt like a member of your family had died. For some reason in there, Elvis seemed like we all loved him, and we felt like he loved us, and we felt like he was part of us. And it was almost like Elvis is dead, everything's over. It was like, or like a member, somebody that you knew that, was like a real close person to you, even though you weren't around him all the time. Well, see, the real thing that separated me and Elvis Presley, and let's just go on the line right now, was Colonel Tom Parker. Because once I wouldn't give him my fan club, and another little side story is that I called Waco the squarest town in America, which was picked up by Associated Press and went to every newspaper. And the Colonel didn't want that because he was into a PR thing, trying to repackage Elvis. He wanted me to apologize to Waco, and I refused to do it. And then, it was like, that was it. Boom. It was like I was an out of control person with a high profile with Elvis. And so they barred me from everything. And I figured, well, even if I tried to find or contact Elvis, he's got this man that's got him in a cage, you know what I mean? Like those chickens that used to dance at the carnival. And so I'm not going to get through. I'm not even going to bother myself with it. I got better things to do, I got a lot of living to do. I got a whole lot of living to do. So, I went on with my life, and raising my children. And when Elvis died, it made me feel very vulnerable because if the king is dead, the court cannot be far behind. I guess it kind of reminded me of my mortality.